I'm going to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Minneapolis City Council. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Here.
Bender.
Here.
Glidden is absent. Yang.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Quincy.
Here.
Warsami.
Here.
Goodman.
Present.
Fry.
Here.
Palmisano.
Present.
Gordon is absent. Kano.
Here.
President Johnson.
Here.
There are 11 members present.
We have all members present except Councilmember Glidden, who has a minor medical procedure today. So we have a quorum present. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Move adoption.
Second. The agenda has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next item then on our agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 4th, 2017.
Move acceptance.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next item then on the agenda is referral petitions, communications, and report to proper committees.
Move referral.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. The next item on our agenda then are the reports of the standing committees, and the first committee to report is the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. The Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee is bringing 10 items forward for approval this morning. Item number 1 is a land sale at the Alden Smith House at 1403 Harmon. Item 2 is a bond issuance for Catholic elder care for the Albert Hofstede campus. Item number 3 are the regular liquor, business, and gambling licenses. Items 4 and 5 are settlement conference recommendations. Item 6 are 2 projects moving through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund pipeline. Item 7 are approving projects for affordable housing money from Hennepin County. Item 8 is the Downtown East Commons Park dedication fee. Item 9 is submittal to HUD of our consolidated annual performance and evaluation report. And item number 10 is awarding our 2017 allocation of housing opportunities for persons with AIDS awards. With that, I'll move items 1 through 10 for approval this morning.
Councilmember Goodman has moved the Community Development Regulatory Services report. Anyone wish to discuss any of those items? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye on all items, no on 8.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye, no on number 8.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes on the report except for item number 8, which has 10 ayes and 2 nays.
Those items are adopted. Next, we have the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam President. The Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee is bringing forward 5 items today for consideration. The first is the passage of an ordinance amending Title 11, Chapter 255, dealing with carryout bags in retail establishments, or the Bring Your Own Bag ordinance. Second item is a facility use agreements for disaster relief, and we're moving the amended action from Ways and Means. The third item is an agreement with the Division of Indian Work for health-related services. Fourth item is an agreement with Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University for land use regression study. And the fifth item is an ordinance amending Title 15, having to do with permit requirements for amplified sound equipment and noise. And I will move all 5 items.
Councilmember Gordon, excuse me, has moved the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing no one else first, I'm going to turn the chair over to Councilmember Quincy, and I'm going to move a substitute for item 1.
Thank you, Madam President. Recognize Council President Johnson for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My staff direction today, it's actually a staff direction, but a substitute for enacting the ordinance. And the direction would be to send back to staff, and it should be in front of you. I'm going to add a few words to it. Send back to staff for more input from low-income people and retailers, especially small businesses, and then develop a recommendation that creates a source of revenue for environmental and litter cleanups and environmental education, and then additionally reduces plastic waste. And I'll move that.
The item's been moved. Are there any comments or,
Needs a second.
it needs a second, I'm sorry.
Second.
Seconded, sorry, apologize. Moved and seconded. Are there any comments? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. This is the first time I've seen the staff direction, and I think that we can go ahead and pass the ordinance, and we could also take the direction to explore and get more input from people, and also come up with recommendations to create a source of revenue for environmental litter cleanup. So when I'm reading this, I don't actually see it necessarily contradicting the ordinance, and but it's a little bit unclear on me because it was mentioned as a substitute. So I guess we'd be sending back the entire ordinance for staff. I think that creates problems. I don't think that it's necessarily wise. We're dealing with an ordinance that we actually passed well over a year ago, trying to deal with a very serious environmental problem that we have in the city, but also beyond that. I think we had a good model, and in fact, we were ready to implement that. And then the state preempted part of our ordinance. So what we did was we looked at it again, and we wanted to clean up where the problem was. The ordinance that we passed, and I think it was a super majority of us supported the ordinance, did have a 5-cent fee on paper bags, and people understood that that was an incentive that would help people remember to bring their own bags. It was modeled after something that's been done in many countries throughout the world, many cities, states. The full state of Hawaii has adopted a similar ordinance. Unfortunately, the state came in preempted and said we can't ban plastic bags. So this was Councilmember Warsami and I met and discussed what to do in lieu of this, because half of our ordinance was apparently legal and then the other half of it wasn't. So what made the most sense in consultation with staff, also listening to people at the public hearing, was to do a fee on both paper and plastic. Unfortunately, it looks like the bag industry went forward with a campaign against it. I think the only entity that's really going to lose in this is the bag industry that manufactures plastic bags out of state. I understand that while I was out on a brief vacation, there were robocalls that were going on, and there was a lot of misinformation about what this is, but this is a pass-through charge that would go to the retailers. I'm willing to support the staff direction, but I won't be supporting the part that moves it back. I think we can straighten our ordinance out now. We can align it with the state law as it's written, as we proposed it, and then we can go ahead and continue to gather more input from folks and also develop recommendations for environmental cleanup, which I certainly support.
Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am proposing this, and I want to make it clear, I want to send the entire matter back to staff for further review. So it would negate item 1 and send it back for further review. I would tell you, council members, it isn't the bag industry that's been contacting me. It is actually small businesses and the community itself that tells me that this is an onerous thing to do. I find it offensive that we would tell retailers to impose a fee on themselves, again, getting into business practices that they already, some retailers have done this already. If you go to Aldi, the Aldi store in my ward at Lowry and Penn, and you buy groceries there, you have to buy a plastic bag, and they charge you for it. Now, I've never had to do that because I brought my own bag in always, but that's what happens. Those retailers have the opportunity to charge what they want to charge. And for us to tell them that they have to do this, to me, is over the top. So I think it's important to understand what we are doing. Again, I'm going to say this, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, to understand what we are doing to small business in this city, which is apparently trying to drive them out. And it's not right, it's not fair, and it impacts communities that survive on a thin margin, businesses in those communities that survive on pennies on the dollar. And so when you add a requirement to them that they're perfectly free to impose themselves, you have done nothing. Last week I had complaints from, I really think it's important, if we're going to do a fee, let's do a fee that lets us figure out how to clean up some of the litter that we see on our streets. Last week I had a constituent complain to me about litter on Penn Avenue North. Well, we have a contract with Hennepin County with Sentence to Serve to come and do litter cleanups on a number of our arterial streets every week. They clean it up. Well, that's not enough. The litter accumulates between the week. And the answer, when I asked the county if they would like to speed that cleanup up, maybe do it twice a week on some of the arterial streets, the answer is show us the money. They contract, it's a contract with them. If we want to increase the litter cleanups, it's going to cost us money. So if we're really serious about doing something about litter in this city and reducing plastic waste, let's figure out a way to capture some of those dollars to actually pay for the things that we're interested in doing. So I hope people will support my motion today.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be supporting the substitute motion. We've been talking about this in the city of Minneapolis for something like 5 years. It was actually my predecessor in the 10th Ward who first sort of lightly proposed regulations on plastic bags. And then the official process has been happening for, I think, 2 years, including our adoption of an ordinance that was then retroactively preempted by the state. So I think the suggestion that we need more community engagement on this issue is maybe just more of an opposition to the policy itself. And so I think if council members want to vote to, return this to author or vote against the ordinance, that's one thing. But, we've had years of community engagement about this issue and already voted on it as a body. Again, we're having to go back and adjust our own local control issues because of preemption by Republicans in the state legislature who listened to the plastic bag lobby and, again, took away our local control over an ordinance that we had already passed. So I think, again, the sort of procedural suggestion that we would need more community engagement before voting on this, I think maybe just is in opposition to the underlying policy itself.
Thank you. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, what we previously voted on was a ban, which I supported. This, however, is a fee that could predominantly impact low-income communities, and I don't want to disregard their input.
Councilmember Andrew Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will support this motion today. I will agree with my colleague, Councilmember Fry. The previous ordinance was actually banning plastic bags altogether, and it also, through amendment, created a revenue stream to address litter cleanup in the city. I don't think the mix is right on this, and I've actually specifically talked to several leaders that represent communities of color and low-income communities who have expressed concern about the disproportionate impact that this fee will have on their residents, their consumers, and I think that we can get a better mix out of this and get a better outcome for the environment. I also say this as somebody who led the effort with a state senator on this issue back in 2010, and we moved forward a bill that would have put a fee on both paper and plastic bags statewide, would have created nearly $20 million a year in revenue to clean up our rivers and our lakes and to reduce litter. So I think we can get to something that is more beneficial in terms of environmental outcome. I'm happy to work with the authors on that, but I do have concerns about this ordinance as it stands. I think it can be stronger for the environment and it can do better for all of our residents.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments and the discussion on this. I just want to clarify that what we passed in the past was a fee on paper bags. So a fee was part of it. I think it passed on a 10-3 vote. I'm not exactly sure, but it was definitely a super majority. So everybody who voted for the plastic bag ban was supporting also a fee on paper, as well as all the people that came in and spoke. I don't know if you remember the public hearing that we had originally, but the room was absolutely packed. People came in and they spoke for over an hour supporting this idea because they want to see us do something not only to help keep our city cleaner, but also deal with this probably the second most serious problem in the environment globally, which is plastic and waste plastic that ends in our streams, our rivers, our wildlife, in our oceans. And in Minneapolis, if we're lucky enough to pick up the plastic and get it put in some kind of receptacle, then it's burnt downtown. It's burnt downtown where there's pollution that comes out of the stack that goes into the air over our city, and people breathe that. Parts of the city that have the highest asthma rate anywhere in the state are close to that garbage burner where we're burning all this plastic constantly. And even if it gets to our recycling facility, they can't recycle it. There's no one to buy it. There's no market for it. And what it ends up doing is it ends up tying up all the mechanics of the recycling facility. So they shut it down 6 to 10 times a day so they can cut all the plastic off, put that in a bin, and take it downtown to burn it in the burner. I also want to point out that while the legislature preempted us, it was not the full legislature. In fact, not one single city legislator supported the exemption. They all supported keeping our ordinance intact. It was the Republican-led legislature, and the vote was right down party lines, and almost was vetoed by the governor, except it hung in by a thread, and apparently he was unwilling to do so because of the package of the bill that was sent to him. So it was the Republicans in the legislature that preempted it and stopped it. The Democrats, and if there are any independents, but all the other parties supported letting us do our experiment. I also wanted to point out that one of the reasons why we picked this model was because it was the best way to support our retailers. This is what they did in the West Coast. The 5-cent pass-through charge that goes to the retailers is now warmly embraced and accepted by them. Because they're able to recover the cost for their bags, they're able to lower their operating expenses and prices in other foods. That's one of the reasons why Aldi's and some stores don't buy the bags in the first place, because then they can keep their prices low. So there's a trade-off and a benefit. People are paying for the bags right now when they shop, and they're paying for the bags because of the cost of the things that they're buying. Those retailers have to gather those costs. This gives them a chance to recover those costs and also send a message to all of us. Maybe we should think twice and bring our own bag. And the fact of the matter is, bringing your own bag saves you money. You're not paying the fee, and in many cases, you actually then get a benefit, a deduction on your bill for bringing the bag, because there's another incentive that the store creates. I think if we go forward with this now, we can go and do our research, we can get more input, we can see how it's working, we can explore the possibility of setting aside money for some kind of environmental benefit. But I think we're not going to have the authority to do a tax for us to collect that anyway to do that. That's something we can fund anytime we want out of the general fund if we want to put some money for that, and I'd certainly support looking at how we could do that, and hopefully it'll be part of our zero waste plan. I'm not sure how close I am to my time limit, but I've got a few more minutes. I think somehow this has gotten blown out of proportion. I just want to emphasize that there's already over 160 U.S. cities that are doing bans and fees. Some people have been doing this for decades and decades. There's also many countries, including Kenya, Rwanda, Botswana, Ethiopia, Somalia, Bangladesh, Mexico, and China, that are regulating bags so that they stop this problem and they do their part. Many more countries have enacted single-use bag fees. So they weren't able to do a ban, but they did a bag fee, and they've seen very positive results in terms of their waste stream, including Ireland, Denmark, Wales, Italy, Scotland, Germany, England, and Belgium. We have Duluth ready to enact something like this so they can help save and keep healthy the largest freshwater lake in the world, to do their part, and they're watching us carefully. I think that if we can move forward and take this step, and then we can move a staff direction similar to the one that's before you to do more research. And it would be something I think our residents want, something the retailers will find that works great for them, and something we'll discover doesn't actually result in a whole ton of money going into corporations, because people will start bringing their bags to the stores like they do now. It's also supported by the Minneapolis Community Environmental Advisory Commission. I should have mentioned that earlier, but our own group came back when they saw the preemption, and they said, this is the pathway that you should take. Clean Water Action, Alliance for Sustainability,
Councilman.
and I must have hit my timeline. And so that's just the tip of the iceberg of the groups that are supporting this.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just would point out again, we are not prohibiting any retailer from doing exactly this, imposing a paper bag fee or plastic bag fee for their customers. And I think some retailers have already done that. As Councilmember Gordon mentioned, some retailers give you a credit for bringing your own bag. That's a business decision. And so I would encourage my colleagues, again, to send this back. Let's talk some more and figure out a way to fund what we really are interested in, which is environmental cleanup and litter cleanup in this city.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Not seeing any. Clerk will call the roll on the Johnson motion.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
No.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
No.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 10 ayes and 2 nays.
That motion passes. I'll return the chair to the president.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the rest of the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee report, items 2 through 5, any further discussion, or if anyone want to pull any of those items off? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
Those items are adopted. Next, we have the Intergovernmental Relations Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Glidden, but the vice chair is Councilmember Kano, and she chaired the meeting. Councilmember Kano.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, the Intergovernmental Relations Committee brings forward one item, which is a passage of resolution affirming the city of Minneapolis as a welcoming city, and I will move that forward.
Councilmember Kano has moved the Intergovernmental Relations report. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, we have 3 items for approval. The first item is the appointment of Chief of Police. And the second item is a grant from the Minnesota Justice Foundation for participation in the summer law program for the Civil Rights Department. And the third item is a 2017 community partnership grant from Centerpoint Energy for tracking bracelets for the Minneapolis Fire Department. And I will move items number 2 and 3, and I will pull item 1 up for discussion.
Councilmember Yang has moved the items 2 and 3 from the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management report. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
Those items are adopted. On item 1, Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to move this item for approval, and I imagine most of the folks here are here for this historic occasion. And I just wanted to just be really quick. I made most of my comments in the Public Safety Committee, but I think this is a historic moment for the city of Minneapolis, and that we took this long to get here. I just think it's great that we got here, and we have a great candidate for the appointment of Chief of Police in Madera Arredondo, and I hope my colleagues support this appointment made by the mayor, and I'm sure the mayor might have some things to say as well. And so I'm going to reserve my comments for that. But I'm just thrilled that we have a great public servant in Madera Arredondo who is willing to take on this task, and looking forward to just the great things that he's going to do in the next 17 months and hopefully into the future as well. So thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Council President Johnson, and thank you, Councilmember Yang, for bringing forward Acting Chief Arredondo's name from Public Safety Committee. And thank you, council members, for letting me speak in your meeting here today. Today is a big day for Minneapolis. It is always a big day when we get a new police chief for our residents and for our officers. It doesn't happen that often. And when it does, we should take the time to note it as we are doing here today. Today, we are asking a one-time child of Minneapolis, of the South Side, who for the last 28 years has served as an officer, who has risen through the ranks of our department to take on the top job in our police department. This is a great challenge and a great opportunity. And we are asking him to take on this job at an unprecedented time for our residents. It is a time when they have been shaken by recent events. The shooting of Justine Damond, to be sure, and others as well. We are asking him to do this when not only in Minneapolis, but nationally, more attention than ever and more expectations than ever are on policing, on police officers, and police departments, including our own. We are asking him to do this at a time when some residents believe that our highest imperative is public trust, and other residents believe our highest imperative is public safety, and to some of them, those two things feel incompatible. And we are asking him to take on the job at a time when many of our officers are also deeply affected by the same recent events. Their profession, as well as our expectations for it, is changing rapidly, and they are wondering what is next. In the midst of this change and uncertainty, they continue to heed the call and serve in ways small and large, including just a couple of weeks ago at the Minnehaha Academy, where I spoke to officers who had just raced toward a burning building to save lives with no thought of their own. This is the unprecedented moment in which we are asking Acting Chief Arredondo to serve as chief. We are asking him to do it because in this unprecedented moment, he is the person of community, the person of service, and the person of vision who I am confident will lead us to where we know we want to go. Rondo, as we know him, is a person of community. And let me be clear, Rondo isn't just committed to community. He is a person of community, made and shaped by it in his core. Anyone with any doubt about that had only to look at the scores of people from every community, neighborhood, and walk of life who eagerly stepped up to speak in support of him at last week's public hearing. To a person, people told us that Rondo's rootedness in community gives them a level of belief and confidence and trust in him that is matched in almost no one else. And I know that Dr. Josie Johnson and Clyde Bellecourt are here today. They too rooted in community. They know him and they spoke to him. Rondo is a person of service. He has dedicated his professional life to serving the people of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Police Department by working as a team member and collaborator, sharing credit and putting others forward ahead of himself. I am especially pleased that as chief, he will be a great collaborator and team player with his colleagues all across the departments in the city of Minneapolis. And the service-oriented leadership quality of Rondo's that has struck me the most, one that is rooted in being a person of community and a person of service, is that he leads by listening. Many leaders lead by talking, but Rondo leads by listening. As a result, I think everyone who has ever had a conversation with him, even a brief one, can attest that they left the conversation feeling fundamentally heard. At a time in the life of our city when so many people, including residents, including our officers, want to be and feel fundamentally heard and acknowledged on issues related to policing, safety, and trust, his ability to lead from a place of service and listening is essential. And Rondo is a person of vision. This may be an aspect of him with which people are less familiar because he has a habit of putting others first and making sure others are heard first. But I have already seen, and we will all soon see, that he has a clear vision of public safety and public trust, not as incompatible, but as essential and inseparable components of one another. He will be a chief and a leader who will not only ingrain into the department the many important changes we have made in recent years, he will move forward with his own inspiring vision for transformation. So as I said, today is a big day for Minneapolis. Council members, thank you for what you are about to do on this big day, and I do again ask you for your support for Acting Chief Arredondo as chief. To our officers, thank you for your continued dedication and service. To our residents, thank you for your ongoing commitment to make Minneapolis the best we can be. And finally, Acting Chief Arredondo, thank you for your willingness to serve as our chief in this unprecedented and powerful moment of transformation for our communities, for our city, for our people, of which you are so fundamentally a part. You have my emphatic and strong support. I look forward to the great work we're going to do together for Minneapolis. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The thing about Rondo that he's mentioned to me in private, and he's also mentioned in public before the public hearing last week, is that he's never lost faith that he had the backing of the community in all of his 28 years of policing. I think we need every officer to feel this way, and we need every resident to feel this way about our Minneapolis Police Department. Lots of residents from all over the city said they felt in their gut that he's the right choice, that they are convinced that he, Rondo, can make a difference, that they'd sign up to help and be part of it, and that he'd need the full support of all of us. So I'm signing up to do that. But the people's support is provisional, and so is mine over these next 17 months. We have to set clear, measurable objectives, and we're going to have to move past platitudes as to what we really expect from our police chief. And then we can evaluate and make sure we're making the progress we need to make. In the public hearing, and in informal ways, people have been reaching out to all of us. And the biggest part of all of this is that Medaria Arredondo is a wonderful person, and we need him to be a change agent. The X factor that I see for Rondo is, can he take the man that he is and the person that he's been in his professional actions to lead and inspire a department and to forge his personal relationships across our city to the benefit of this whole department. When I sat down with Rondo, we drilled down on lots of things in those meetings. And I was really pleased with that conversation. 4 weeks ago today, I called for change in the police department from the top to the bottom. We got immediate change at the top, thanks to Mayor Hodges for responding so quickly to that call. And now, what's our bottom-up strategy? How does this permeate throughout the department? I think that's going to be a lot harder. How does all law enforcement develop the capacity that people speak about Rondo having, an ability, an uncanny talent to reach across cultures, to build a single greater community that can, as they said, be with us every step of the way, like they feel he has been for us. I know it cannot be an us versus them way to make policing better in this country. And a few weeks ago, the head of the Minneapolis Police Union had a well-written op-ed piece, and he had some really important statistics to remember about our own department and our own officers. But I fundamentally disagree with his premise that we don't have a systemic problem of policing. I can't accept that, and I don't want a police chief that would. We, not just Minneapolis police, but policing in America, needs law enforcement to not accept that premise. A New York Times article recently spoke about over 1,000 deaths nationally and over 50,000 injuries of police-citizen interactions. I couldn't agree more with that article. And Rondo, through our very detailed conversations about bold ideas on reform, about what our officers need to feel supported, about what our residents need for law enforcement, about how to strengthen accountability and relationships, and much more. I believe that Rondo knows, agrees, and he will work on re-engineering interactions between civilians and officers. I know that he will work to test, from standard operating procedures compliance to the mental health and wellness of our officers, and to innovate beyond the Minneapolis Police Department. That was a big part of our discussion, was to be a leader in policing beyond Minneapolis and to show what Minneapolis can do and can be. So I think it's going to take Medaria Arredondo, his command staff, every officer, and our next term's council and mayor together to see these things through the way our city demands. I'm ready to commit my support, and I know that it comes with great expectations. Thank you.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to express my gratitude to such a talented leader for stepping into this role right now. The conversation about policing and safety in our community has changed so much over the past number of years during this term. It was only 4 years ago that Terrence Franklin was killed in the 10th Ward before I took office. And the conversation that has become now citywide has changed so much through the time when we as a city experienced the death of Jamar Clark and now Justine Damond. I've seen the political support for change in our department grow strongly over that time. And I think what I want to just add to this conversation is the fact that I need to pledge, and I think all of us here, our full support to change in a department that has such an important role in our community. We ask our officers to put themselves on the line. You work long hours. We've asked you to change your role and expand what we're asking you to do in the community. And we need to stand behind you in that and give you the support that you need. We also need to take responsibility as elected officials, every single one of us, no matter the structure of direct command within our city's government, to supporting change within our department. And that comes into our budgetary priorities. I'm very much looking forward to our new acting chief to talk through more of the discussions that we've been having about how to expand our investments in safety and violence prevention in the mayor's pilot Community Beyond Safety program, in the discussion that we had last year about how to allocate resources for mental health co-responders and, again, violence prevention. In order to change, we need new thinking in how our values are showing up in our department and the resources that we provide. And that's on every single elected official in the city of Minneapolis. We have a situation where when I talked to some members of our community, they were literally afraid to come to City Hall to speak at the public hearing. And that needs to change. Above all, what we're doing here in the brief time that any of us are in elected office is deciding what kind of city our children are going to live in. And to have a city where Black and brown children, young people, are afraid to come to their city hall, their elected government's place of operation, is something that needs to deeply change. And I believe in Rondo's ability to lead us through that. But again, it takes the responsibility and all of us stepping up and acknowledging that and working together to change it. Any change in our police leadership would have required the support of the city council at any time. And so I thank Mayor Hodges now for stepping forward with this change, but I also want to acknowledge again the responsibility of every elected official in our city on these major decisions. Thank you so much for the time, and again, thank you to Rondo for taking on this role.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam President. 4 weeks ago, Councilmember Palmisano and I made it very clear that it was time for a change, that new leadership was absolutely essential, and that, let's be honest, the last 4 years, 3.5 years have been difficult. We've seen 2 police shootings. We know that significant reform is necessary, and yes, systemic reforms are necessary. And simultaneously, we have had a significant uptick in violent crime, specifically shootings. We can't ignore these facts. These are facts. And I am pleased. I am very pleased to see Inspector Rondo come forward. He has been a wonderful leader. He's been extraordinary to work with in his first precinct inspector. I've retained a really special relationship with him, as I know, and I know I'm not unique in any way, shape, or form. This relationship, it goes to the community, it goes to businesses, small and local, as well as downtown, and neighborhoods. And I am very proud of this moment, and I look forward to working with now Chief Rondo going forward.
Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also welcome the appointment of Chief Rondo. As a first-time council member, he was a great asset to me as the inspector of the 1st Precinct, representing the neighborhoods of Cedar Riverside and Elliott Park. And he played a key role in reducing the perception of violence in those two neighborhoods and improving the public safety of those two areas. And since his rise within the leadership of the department, he has always been somebody helpful, attentive, professional, and open-minded. And what I hope is that he becomes a change agent and changes the relationships between people of color in the city of Minneapolis and the department, and implements some of the ideas that we have discussed in terms of, bringing more people of color into the police department, and also changing the culture within the police department. And I think that he's a man of courage, and I'm glad that I'm going to take a part in his appointment today. So thank you very much to everyone.
Councilmember Andrew Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a tough time in policing, and especially to step into the role of being a police chief, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I'm proud to support you, Chief, and look forward to our work together in partnership. I want to remind you again, please leverage us as council members in the work that you're doing. I know you can't do it all alone, and you've got a team that you're surrounded with and a lot of exceptional folks throughout the department that you can leverage as well in doing that work and fulfilling that vision. But please leverage elected leaders and continue to leverage folks without the community. Throughout the community, you have a lot of support within the community for good reason, and I think that's why you have so much support up here today, why we are proud to support you. And I know that it's a never-ending job, but I would encourage you to take a moment with your family to celebrate as well, and take time throughout the work because it's so easy to get bogged down in reaction, to take time throughout the work to think about where we're going as a department, if that's on track with your vision, and what more you need in order to make that happen. So I wish you all the best with it. Look forward to working with you as well as we all work towards these goals of improved policing throughout our city, which we all are interested in seeing. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm just going to be brief and just say that I think some of the qualities that make Rondo the right person for this job are qualities that we would like to see in every Minneapolis police officer. The kind of person that gives respect to everyone that he's speaking to, that he deals with, that is calm and cool in tense situations. And, we're all human beings, and so we all have failings at times. But to me, that's the most important quality that Rondo brings to this really terribly, terribly hard job. And again, I just want to say, I've said it before, I want to say it again, thank you for being willing to take on this responsibility. It's a huge responsibility, and I know you'll do a great job. So I'm really pleased that you're willing to do this. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
We have an unanimous approval. Congratulations. Chief, why don't you just come up and give us a short remarks? Thank you.
Move to suspend the rules.
Oh, no, we staff. Chief.
Madam Chair, council members, Mayor, I'm humbled and I'm also honored on this day to be before all of you, community, the wonderful, talented, professional men and women, both sworn and civilian, that make the Minneapolis Police Department truly one of the greatest in the country. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the historical importance of today. And while I went through my 28 years, and quite frankly, even last month, never knowing I'd be before all of you today in this position, I meant what I said. In my 28 years, I have never felt for 1 hour that my community was not supportive of me and the work that I was doing. I stand on the shoulders of both heroes and sheroes that through their trials, tribulations, sacrifices, and fights have allowed me and others to be at the place and have the opportunities that I have today. I'm so blessed when I mentioned sheroes to have someone like Dr. Josie Johnson be with us today, and certainly Miss Deb Montgomery, who has been a leader and pioneer in so many aspects too, but also just to have had the friendship and relationships with someone like Elder Belcourt, Mr. Moss, and others in the room today. I'm truly grateful of that. When I was asked by the mayor to go ahead and lead this police department, there was not a hesitation. And the reason why there wasn't a hesitation is because I've had the ability to see and work with truly some of the greatest men and women. Both are sworn, and we have an absolutely phenomenal civilian partnership that are committed. You may not hear a chief use this four-letter word, but you cannot truly believe in service without love. And I love this city, continue to love this city and all the communities that we serve. I will continue to treat the men and women of this department with the respect and dignity that I would want to have and that I expect our community members to be treated with. And while I know that we have done many tremendous things with this Minneapolis Police Department, I do know that there are pockets in our communities that have felt no trust, where that trust has been shaken. And it's important for me to inspire the men and women that we have to restore that. We will never succeed if we do not have the trust of our community. And so there will be dark days and there will be difficult days. And I will call upon all of you to help support us in doing the work. But we must, in terms of the Minneapolis Police Department, we are responsible for doing that work. I do plan to have a shift in our culture. It's been 150 years with the Minneapolis Police Department. We have done some tremendous things, but I also know that our history has been marked with times where we have harmed communities. And that takes time to change that pain, but I'm dedicated and obligated to making sure that we do that. I want to make sure that we are also accountable to ourselves. That's important. For the communities to have trust in us, they must know that we are holding ourselves accountable. I also want to focus on outcomes, not so much just for the police department, but what are the outcomes that our communities feel are important to them? And I want to wrap all of that under the blanket of procedural justice, that the men and women of this police department know that we must give our community members voice, we must give them respect, we must treat them with the dignity they deserve, and all of this in terms of building a trustworthiness and being neutral and non-judgmental at the same time. It's going to be a heavy lift, but I'm ready for it. As someone had said before in a public meeting, I'm short and bald, and I'm ready and up to the task. So I'm up to the task. But I truly want to thank all of you. All of you are part of my 400,000 bosses that I'm responsible for. And this is it's not an easy task, and it's not for your consideration to have me stand before you to lead the Minneapolis Police Department was not an easy one. And you have to take in the concerns of all of your constituents. I will tell you that there will not be a day that I show up to work and put on this badge that I'm not thinking about all of your constituents. And I'll continue to try to make them feel safe and be safe in this wonderful city of ours. So with that, I just want to thank every one of you. Thank you.
On with the rest of our meeting. Next, we have the Transportation and Public Works Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee forwards 7 items today for approval. Item 1 is the cooperative agreement with Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority for Fremont Avenue South Bridge funding. Item 2 is the contract with Power Motion for General Electric Intelligent Platform Software and Hardware. Item 3 is the agreement with the Minnesota Vikings Football Stadium for counterflow crossover construction. Item 4 is the 2017 Municipal State Aid Revenue Adjustment. Item 5 is the application for 2017 Highway Freight Program solicitation for reconstruction of the 37th Avenue Northeast from Central Avenue to Simpson Boulevard. Item 6 is the application for the 2017 Transportation Economic Infrastructure Program solicitation for reconstruction of the Dowling Avenue North from I-94 to First Avenue North. And the final item is the Essex Street South Sanitary Sewer Project and their assessments. Madam President, I move all items as submitted.
Councilmember Reich has moved the Transportation Public Works report. Anyone want to pull any of those items off or discuss anything? Seeing no one, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Ways and Means Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam President. Ways and Means will bring forward 12 items for your consideration this morning. The first 7 are a series of legal settlements. First 8 items. Item number 9 is a low bid for Minneapolis Convention Center digital wayfinding signage project. Item 10 is a contract amendment for elections management system support. Item number 11 is the joint powers agreement with the state of Minnesota for implementing the national incident-based reporting system. And then the final item is acceptance of a $1.5 million grant from Merck Foundation to reduce disparities in diabetes care. I'd like to move all 12 items for approval.
Councilmember Quincy has moved the Ways and Means report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Zoning and Planning Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Bender. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 4 items from zoning and planning this cycle. Item number 1 is an alley vacation at 3138 Snelling Avenue in the adjacent address. Item number 2 is approving a rezoning for the Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative Project, which is a new supportive housing development with 75 beds. Item number 3 is approving a rezoning at 3816 Ewing Avenue South for a duplex. And item number 4 is approving an application to amend the future land use map in our Minneapolis Plan for Sustainable Growth to allow for a new property services facility at 2601 through 2651 University Avenue Northeast. I'll move items 1 through 4.
Councilmember Bender has moved the Zoning and Planning report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the introduction and referral calendar. The first is pursuant to notice, Councilmember Bender introduces the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to the zoning code regarding amending land use application fees, regulations affecting uses subject to site plan review and standards governing changes to approved applications. Any discussion on that introduction? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next, we have pursuant to notice of a motion by Councilmember Reich to introduce the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code regarding licenses and business regulations, lawful gambling, amending the conditions for the conduct of lawful gambling licensure. Any discussion on that introduction? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next, we have under resolutions a 2017 Hunger Action Month honorary resolution. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. We have the 2017 Twin Cities Polish Festival honorary resolution. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next, we have the 2017 Childhood Cancer Awareness Month honorary resolution. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next, we have announcements. Are there any announcements? Seeing none, I'm just going to read a short statement, and it is about the incidents that happened in Charlottesville this week. We stand with Charlottesville, Virginia, its mayor and city council, and cities all across the United States in condemning hatred, violence, and racism. We denounce white supremacist groups and acknowledge we have important work to do in the state of Minnesota, where death threats have terrorized Jewish community centers, a bomb viciously damaged the Dar al-Farouk Islamic Center, public schools have been vandalized with racist and anti-Semitic graffiti, and the legacies of racism and white supremacy impact life in our state. Most importantly, we recommit ourselves as elected officials to aggressively advancing racial equity through policy and funding and repairing our relationship to our country's history. We commit to working with community partners in our critical work to advance equity in our cities and our country. We stand together as Minnesotans and Minneapolitans and as public officials who believe advancing equity and inclusion is critical to the public good. Thank you. With that, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.
Moved and seconded. All in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you all very much.